The shuttle doors hissed open with a burst of sterilized air, and Corporal Jace Work stepped onto the training grounds of Garish Prime, the most elite military academy in the galaxy. He staggered for half a second. Gravity. Heavy. His boots sank into the platform as if someone had strapped weights to his bones. Sweat prickled across his skin almost instantly. The air felt thick, like trying to breathe through syrup. But he didn't fall. He grinned. "Okay," he muttered, adjusting his duffel bag on his shoulder. "So this is normal around here. Great." High above, silver domes gleamed under twin suns. Giant banners of the Galactic Concord rippled in the breeze, each one bearing the crest of a different species. Alien cadets in sleek training uniforms moved with military precision across the vast courtyard. Some had tails. Some glided. A few scuttled sideways on too many legs. All of them stopped and turned when they saw him. The human. Word spread like fire. That's him. The Earth one. Why's he? Upright. Should have passed out by now. Jace pretended not to notice. He walked forward, step by step, steady and stubborn. His bones groaned, but he pushed through it. The sound of quiet chuckles and whispered bets reached his ears. They'd been told humans were fragile, that they couldn't handle garish gravity. Someone snickered. Maybe Earth forgot to send the right species. Jace looked up and saw a smirking instructor standing beside the gravity controls. He tapped a screen, and the pressure on Jace's body doubled. Like a truck dropping on his shoulders. The world tilted. His legs buckled. He dropped to one knee. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some cadets laughed outright. Jace's hand curled into a fist on the ground. He exhaled once. Twice. Then he pushed up slowly. Muscles burning. Face pale. And then, he stood. He met the instructor's eyes and flashed a grin. "Mind bumping it to triple?" he said, voice hoarse but steady. "Might as well make it a real workout." The instructor stared. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then came a deep, slow laugh from an old, scared alien wearing the mark of a war general. The laughter echoed through the court, setting off murmurs. "Give the boy what he asked for," the general said, voice rumbling like thunder. "Let's see what Earth really built." Triple gravity engaged. Jace's body screamed in protest. Every step became war. But he didn't break. He didn't fall. And every single cadet watched as the human trainee walked to the barracks under pressure that would crush most species flat. The arena buzzed with anticipation. Massive jagged walls surrounded the pit, where bright holographic ads flashed above. Spectators lined the stands, the air thick with the smell of alien foods, the distant hum of chatter, and the sharp scent of ozone from the glowing training barriers. Jace Work stood in the center of the pit, sweat dripping down his forehead. His muscles ached from the triple gravity, and his vision blurred slightly as his legs quivered beneath him. But his stance was solid. His breathing was steady. 30 against 1 human. The alien voice rang out over the loudspeaker. "No one survives this." Jace didn't flinch. Instead, he wiped his palm across his face, wiping away the sweat, and grinned. "Guess I'll make history then." A few chuckles echoed from the stands, but the instructors were silent. The gauntlet was set. If he could survive this combat trial, against 30 of the galaxy's finest, he'd earn more than just bragging rights. He'd prove Earth wasn't a joke. The first group attacked all at once. 30 cadets from every corner of the galaxy charged toward him in a blur of movement. Some with claws, some with blades, others with energy whips or bio-enhanced limbs. Jace only had his training, a lifetime of grit, discipline, and human stubbornness. One alien lunged, a thick-tailed creature with red skin and 4 arms. Jace sidestepped at the last second, feeling the wind from its swiping claws as it missed by inches. He twisted, using the creature's momentum to slam it into the dirt. The crowd gasped. Another cadet, a sleek, humanoid reptilian with glowing scales, fired a burst of energy from its wrist. Jace dove, the blast singing his arm, but he rolled and came back up faster than most would believe possible, under 3G. The next wave came. The pit was a blur of motion, and Jace was at its center, dodging, weaving, and striking with brutal efficiency. His fist slammed into a four-legged insectoid alien's chest, sending it reeling. His elbow caught another opponent mid-jump, sending the alien sprawling. But the more he took down, the more they came. One by one, they circled him, their expressions turning from cocky to uncertain. But they wouldn't stop. He was human. They had to break him. They had to make him fall. The Zorekian cadet, known for its overwhelming speed and precision, rushed in like a blur, its blades drawn and aimed for Jace's throat. The audience held their breath. But Jace's instincts kicked in. He dropped to the ground, letting the Zorekian pass overhead, and rolled beneath it, grabbing its leg and twisting it in an unnatural direction. The alien let out a screech, crumbling to the ground in pain. Only 10 were left, and they were no longer laughing. Jace's breath came in sharp bursts. His body screamed in protest with every movement, but he didn't give in. He couldn't. One more, then another, then 2 more. By the time the final cadet approached, Jace was barely standing. His face was bruised, his suit torn in places, and his eyes locked onto his last opponent, a towering, horned alien with thick armor plating. It was the biggest of them all. Jace raised his fists, his chest heaving. "Is that all you've got?" The horned cadet snarled and charged. The garish gauntlet was more than just a trial. It was a spectacle. A sprawling labyrinth of traps, puzzles, and obstacles, all designed to test the body, the mind, and the spirit. And for the first time in garish history, a human had signed up to run it, alone. The sun blazed overhead, but the metallic shadows of the garish complex stretched long across the ground. The atmosphere hummed with energy as the crowd gathered, their eyes glued to the enormous holographic screen floating above the course. Every species, some floating, others slithering, and a few with multiple eyes, waited to see if the Earthling could survive. Jace Work stepped forward, his legs still heavy from the gravity, his muscles aching from the earlier combat. His breath was steady, his mind sharp. He had one objective now: survive. A booming voice echoed through the arena. The garish gauntlet. 1 human, 30 obstacles, no mercy. He stepped into the first section, a vast, open arena filled with shifting platforms and large spinning blades. The ground beneath him rumbled. He barely had time to brace himself before a massive blade swung through the air, slicing the space where he'd been standing just a second earlier. The crowd gasped. Jace's eyes narrowed. He could see the patterns now. The blades rotated at different intervals. Some spun slowly, some fast. It was a matter of timing, of understanding the rhythm. His legs protested as he dashed, his feet skimming the ground, narrowly avoiding another swing. His heart hammered in his chest, but his focus never wavered. One platform dipped beneath his feet. He jumped, his muscles burning as he propelled himself forward, landing just as the next blade shot across the gap. His landing was imperfect. He staggered, nearly losing his balance. But he didn't fall. The crowd was silent. Every eye was on him. He kept moving. The second section was a maze of narrow, electrified tunnels. As he crawled through, his body buzzed with energy, the shocks rattling his bones. Sweat drenched his skin, but his mind never wavered. He navigated each twist and turn, avoiding the jagged metal spikes that jutted from the walls, while the hum of electricity pulsed in his ears. Faster, he whispered to himself. Just faster. The final section loomed ahead, a sheer wall, slick with a viscous fluid, extending higher than any human could climb without assistance. The crowd murmured. Even the veteran instructors didn't think he'd make it past this. Jace eyed the wall. There were no handholds, no rope, just a smooth, slick surface that seemed impossible to scale. But he wasn't here to quit. His hands reached out, gripping the wall's surface as his feet found whatever foothold they could. Every muscle screamed. His palms slid, his fingertips burned, but he pushed upward, inch by inch. His breath came in ragged gasps, the world around him fading as he focused on nothing but that wall. The crowd was dead silent, all watching the impossible struggle. Then, with a final burst of strength, Jace pulled himself over the edge. His body collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air, blood pounding in his ears. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. And then, roars, cheers that rattled the stadium, echoes of disbelief and admiration. Jace lay there, battered and bruised, but alive. He had done it. The first human to survive the Garish Gauntlet, alone. The Grand Hall of Garish Prime's military academy was filled with diplomats, officers, and cadets. Holographic banners fluttered like ghostly flags in the air, representing every corner of the galaxy. The sun's rays filtered through the translucent domes above, casting an ethereal glow over the proceedings. Jace Work stood at the far end of the hall, his hands tucked behind his back, his expression calm. He wasn't used to this level of attention. He wasn't used to being in the spotlight at all. But now, here he was, the lone human among hundreds of well-trained, highly respected aliens. He had earned his place, but his next challenge was more personal than any combat or test. At the far side of the hall, Cadet Velshura, the Sarkay ambassador's daughter, stood with her arms crossed, her posture exuding confidence. Her elongated frame was draped in flowing, iridescent robes, her golden eyes gleaming with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Her species was one of the oldest in the galaxy, known for their advanced intellect and ruthless diplomacy. She approached him with purpose. "You're the one they're all talking about." Her voice was cool, but there was a subtle edge beneath her words. Jace met her gaze without flinching. "I guess I've made an impression." Her lips twitched into a brief, almost imperceptible smile. "I don't know if that's good or bad. I've never met a human before." Before Jace could respond, a voice boomed across the hall. General Korath, one of the Academy's highest-ranking officials, with scales as black as night and eyes like molten lava. "The duel is set. Cadet Velshura challenges Corporal Rourke." The crowd shifted, and whispers rippled through the room. Jace raised an eyebrow. "A duel? With you?" "Yes." Velshura's voice was a smooth purr, her gaze unwavering. "You've shown yourself to be a fighter, human. But I'm curious if you can keep up with a real opponent." Jace shrugged. "What's the challenge?" The general raised his hand, signaling the start of the duel. A rectangular, holo-generated arena appeared between them, flickering with energy. Jace glanced around, noting the eyes of every alien in the room. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was representing Earth. The weight of that thought made his chest tighten for a moment, but he pushed it aside. Velshura was fast, too fast for most. But Jace had learned something in his time here. Never underestimate your opponent's confidence. She darted forward with precision, her movements fluid like water, her speed a blur as she aimed for his throat with a blade of shimmering energy. Jace barely managed to duck, feeling the breeze from the blade cut through the air above him. His heart raced, and the crowd's cheers intensified. He didn't hesitate. He surged forward with a swift, powerful counterstrike, aiming for her midsection. But Velshura's reflexes were as sharp as his own, and she spun, twisting her body like a dancer, narrowly avoiding the blow. "Impressive," she said, a flicker of respect in her voice. "But not enough." Jace grinned, feeling his pulse quicken. This wasn't just a fight. This was a challenge to his very core, his instincts clashing with hers, the difference between human ingenuity and alien grace. With a sudden move, Velshura came at him again, this time aiming low, her blade flashing in the light. Jace's mind raced as he dropped, sliding across the smooth floor. He ducked and rolled, coming up behind her, and with a swift move, used her own momentum against her, throwing her off balance. For the first time since the fight began, Velshura stumbled. The crowd went silent. Jace stood over her, his hand held in the air, ready for the final blow. But he hesitated. There was a moment of stillness, a flicker of humanity in the heat of the duel. And then Velshura's golden eyes met his. And there was a shift, something unspoken. She nodded, conceding the match. "You're not like the others," she said, her voice almost admiring. "I didn't think a human could do it." Jace extended his hand to help her up, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Guess I'm full of surprises." The gala hall was a spectacle, an endless sea of colors and lights. Floating platforms drifted overhead, leaden with delicate crystal chandeliers. The air buzzed with conversations in 100 different languages, the hum of alien dialects mixing with soft, melodic music. Elegant figures, shimmering in robes of silk and metal, glided across the marble floors like ghosts. And there, in the center of it all, stood Jace Wark. His uniform was still slightly frayed from the duel, and his body still ached from the trials. But here, in this foreign world of politics and luxury, he felt out of place. He was a human. And this was not Earth. But he wasn't here to blend in. He was here to survive. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Jace turned, finding Cadet Velshura standing behind him. Her iridescent gown shimmered as if woven from starlight, her golden eyes scanning him with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. "I didn't know you were into high society events." Jace smirked, his voice light, trying to mask the discomfort that gnawed at him in this glittering space. Velshura raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a half smile. "I prefer action over politics, but tonight's different. We're not here just for the show." Jace studied her for a moment, sensing a shift in the air around them. There was a weight to her words. The gala wasn't just a celebration of his survival, it was something more. Before he could ask, a figure emerged from the crowd, a tall, broad-shouldered being with a sharp, angular face and silver skin. Ambassador Zurak, the head of the Sarkay delegation, his presence commanding and stern. His eyes locked onto Jace with a cold, calculating stare. "Corporal Rourke." Zurak's voice was like the grinding of stones. "I trust you've been enjoying yourself." Jace straightened, his instincts flaring. "I'm here to learn, Ambassador." Zurak took a step closer, his gaze narrowing. "Good, because you've earned a new challenge." Velshura shifted, her eyes darting toward her father. The tension in the air thickened. "We've been following your progress, human. You've impressed many. But there is a matter you need to resolve." Zurak's tone turned sharp, his voice cold and final. "I have an offer. An ultimatum." "Really?" Jace's stomach twisted. An ultimatum. He had been anticipating trials, tests, and even the occasional political maneuver. But this was different. His heart rate quickened. Velshura's gaze flicked between them, her expression unreadable. Zurak continued, his voice low. "You may have earned the respect of some, but there are others who still view humanity as weak, unfit for the High Council. We want you to challenge one of our highest-ranking officers, General Araktha. Beat him, and you'll have a permanent seat at the table of the Sarkay leadership. Fail, and Earth's status in the Alliance will be jeopardized." Jace's mind raced. A duel with General Araktha. The Sarkay general was a legend, fierce, brutal, and seemingly unbeatable. Jace's pulse throbbed in his temples as the weight of the ultimatum settled over him. "Are you serious?" Jace asked, his voice steady despite the storm inside. Zurak's eyes gleamed with cold amusement, serious enough to destroy everything you've worked for, if you fail. Velshura glanced at Jace, her expression unreadable. But there was something in her eyes. "A challenge. It's your choice," she said softly, though her words carried a weight that spoke volumes. Jace's chest tightened. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. But one thing was clear. He couldn't back down. Not now. Not after everything. He locked eyes with Zurak, and nodded slowly. "I'll take the challenge." The training chamber was massive. An arena carved from stone, its walls lined with shimmering energy shields that would contain any stray blasts. The air was thick with anticipation, the faint hum of the shields vibrating through Jace's bones. Thousands of eyes were trained on the center of the room, where he stood alone, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. General Araktha stood across from him, a towering figure cloaked in dark, jagged armor that seemed to absorb the light. His broad shoulders flexed beneath the heavy plating, and his eyes, glowing with an unnatural, almost feral yellow, focused on Jace with cold, calculated precision. Araktha was no mere warrior. He was a legend, a general whose name sent shivers down the spines of the galaxy's fiercest fighters. Jace wiped the sweat from his brow, his pulse quickening. This wasn't just a duel for victory. It was a fight for Earth's future. He couldn't afford to lose. The room fell silent. Every footstep, every movement felt amplified. Even the distant hum of the artificial gravity seemed to fade into nothingness. "Do you think you stand a chance, human?" Araktha's voice was deep and rasping, like thunder cracking through a mountain. "You're a child playing with forces you can't even begin to understand." Jace didn't flinch. His eyes never left the general. No turning back. "I'm not here to play." Jace's voice was steady, but his heart hammered in his chest. He could feel the weight of the moment, the history of the duel pressing down on him. The countdown began. The air seemed to still, every second stretching out like an eternity. 3. The energy in the room was electric. His hands tightened around the hilt of his energy blade. It was lighter than anything he'd wielded before, but there was a raw power in it, the hum of energy coursing through it like a pulse in his veins. 2. Araktha shifted his stance, his muscles rippling beneath his armor. The general's eyes never blinked, never wavered. 1. With a sudden roar, Araktha charged. The ground trembled beneath his heavy steps. Jace's instincts kicked in. He sidestepped, narrowly avoiding the massive cleaving swipe of the general's energy axe, which cracked the floor with a thunderous boom. The shockwave hit Jace like a battering ram, sending him skidding back, but he quickly regained his footing. Araktha was fast, faster than Jace expected. The general came at him again, this time with a brutal, overhead strike. Jace raised his blade, parrying the attack just in time, the force of the blow pushing him back several steps. His teeth ground together as the weight of Araktha's strike nearly shattered his forearm. "Think, Rourke." He had no time to think. Araktha pressed forward, relentless, each swing a hurricane of power. Jace dodged, his feet barely keeping pace with the general's fury. Every strike left the air humming, every swing tested his limits. Sweat poured down his face as he blocked, ducked, and countered. His movements were desperate, fueled by sheer instinct. Then, a sudden opening. Araktha's massive axe swung wide, and Jace saw the opportunity. He lunged forward, ducking under the general's guard, and driving his energy blade deep into the joint where the armor plates met. Sparks flew, and the ground shook as Araktha let out a roar of pain. The crowd erupted into a frenzy. But Araktha wasn't finished. With a brutal backhand, he sent Jace flying, his body crashing into the energy shield with a crack. He struggled to his feet, his body aching, his vision blurred. Araktha towered above him, rage twisting his face. Is this all the human can offer? Jace gritted his teeth. Not yet. With every ounce of strength he had left, he surged forward again. This time, there was no hesitation. This time, he was going to win. Jace's body screamed with every breath. His muscles ached from the continuous barrage of strikes. His vision blurred, his limbs heavy. His energy blade, now stained with sparks and scorch marks, felt like an extension of his arm. But it was starting to feel heavier, more like a burden. Araktha loomed over him, his monstrous form casting a long shadow. The general's axe swung lazily at his side, the glow of the energy blade radiating with lethal promise. Every strike was a storm. Every swing had the weight of a star behind it. "You fight well, human." Araktha's voice rumbled through the arena, deep and mocking. "But you are not strong enough. Not fast enough." Jace's teeth ground together, his breath shallow. He couldn't let the general get inside his head. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was for Earth, for every person back home, for everything he believed in. With a roar, Araktha swung his massive axe downward, the energy blade crackling through the air. Jace dodged, but not fast enough. The blade caught the edge of his armor, tearing through it with a sickening screech. Pain shot through Jace's side as he staggered back, his breath hitching. The crowd's roar blurred in his ears, a distant sound that barely reached his consciousness. Jace's world was reduced to nothing but the general and the weapon in his hand. "You've made your last mistake, human," Araktha said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "This will be the end of you." Jace's eyes narrowed. His pulse thundered in his ears. And for a moment, everything seemed to slow. The world around him faded, the noise of the crowd silenced, until there was nothing but the rhythmic pounding of his own heartbeat. The general's next strike came like a wave crashing against a cliff. Unstoppable. But this time, Jace was ready. He wasn't going to dodge. Instead, he stepped into it. The axe came down, the hum of the energy blade slicing through the air. In one swift motion, Jace sidestepped, using the momentum of Araktha's attack to guide him. He brought his energy blade up in a smooth arc, slashing across the exposed joint of the general's armor. The sound of metal screeching echoed through the chamber, and for a split second, time seemed to stop. Araktha stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. His arm hung limp, his massive weapon slipping from his grasp. The crowd was silent. Jace stood there, his body trembling, his breath ragged. He had done it. He had wounded the general. Araktha grunted, looking down at the glowing gash across his armor. His eyes narrowed, the rage within him building like a storm. But Jace wasn't finished. He didn't hesitate. With a cry, he surged forward, his body moving faster than he thought possible. His blade met the general's exposed neck, plunging deep into the armor. Araktha's eyes widened in disbelief as the blade made contact, sparks flying as the energy pierced the dark plating. There was a moment of stillness, the world holding its breath. Then, with a final, resounding crack, the general fell to his knees. Jace stood above him, panting, his body shaking with the weight of the battle. The arena was silent, the breath of every spectator held tight in their chests. And then, with a surge of overwhelming force, the crowd erupted. The roar was deafening. Jace didn't move. He couldn't. He had won. But at what cost? The arena was silent, save for the distant hum of the energy shields. Jace stood amidst the wreckage, his chest heaving with every labored breath. His body ached, the bruises and burns from the duel a testament to the battle's brutality. But as he looked around at the crowd, at the sea of alien faces, he felt something he had never expected to feel: resonance. His victory wasn't just his own, it was humanity's. General Araktha lay crumpled on the floor, his massive form sprawled in defeat, his breath shallow but steady. Jace had beaten him. It was over. The room was thick with the tension of something monumental about to happen. Jace's mind buzzed, the adrenaline slowly draining from his body as he surveyed the faces around him. The Sarke delegates, the other officers and cadets, they were all staring at him with a mixture of shock and admiration. He had done what no one thought possible. He had beaten the legend. But his victory had consequences. The holographic screen in the arena flickered, and Ambassadors Hack appeared above the stage, his sharp eyes piercing through the room. His cold gaze met Jace's, his expression unreadable. "Corporal Rourke." Zorak's voice echoed through the hall, resonating with both authority and a subtle respect. "You have done the impossible. You have earned your place." Jace's hands trembled as he lowered his blade. He had fought for Earth, for his people, but in this moment, the weight of what that meant was just beginning to settle on him. The Sarkay have underestimated humanity, Zerhak continued, his voice low but steady. But now we see your strength, your resolve. We see your potential. Jace felt his heart pound in his chest. This wasn't just a fight for glory. This was the beginning of something far greater. Earth's future in the galaxy was now secure. As the crowd began to cheer, the ambassador turned his attention to Velshura, who had stood silently at the back of the arena. Her golden eyes were soft with something Jace couldn't quite place. Was it admiration? Or something more? She stepped forward, her tall frame moving with grace as she approached him, her voice a quiet whisper amid the growing celebration. You've earned more than just a victory, human. You've earned our trust. Jace met her gaze, his mind still reeling from the battle, but there was something in her eyes that made him pause. It wasn't just respect. It was something deeper. I couldn't have done it without the training. Without you. He spoke honestly, his words carrying the weight of everything he had learned from her. Her lips curled into a small smile. And I couldn't have done it without you. The crowd's cheers grew louder, but for a brief moment, it was just the two of them standing there, a human and an alien, forged together in battle and mutual respect. The tension in the room dissolved, replaced by the dawning realization that the impossible had been achieved. Jace had won more than just a duel. He had won a place for humanity in the galaxy. And as he stood there, the cheers of the crowd echoing around him, he realized that this was just the beginning. Earth's story in the stars had only just begun.